Welcome to the Stellar Physical Medicine Educational Series. My name is Lloyd Wright. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist in practice for 30 years with experience treating literally thousands of patients. I am board certified with the National Board of Acupuncture Orthopedics and have served as a qualified medical evaluator for the California Workers' Comp System and as a scientific review board participant for NIH. What we'd like to do today is talk a little bit about traditional Chinese medicine and some of the basic theories and concepts in hopes that you will understand better how your own body works. So in sharing this, you're going to learn a little bit about how the acupuncturist actually looks at and views your state of health and how we begin to make our decision process on how to use strategies of traditional Chinese medicine to restore your health and well-being. So our story really begins over 2,500 years ago. At that time in Chinese medicine, they figured out that the body is basically regulated through what we refer to as the 12 major organs. These 12 organs were said to control literally all the functions throughout the whole body. What that means is any illnesses, symptoms, disease, pain, discomfort, hormone, endocrine balances, pretty much you name it, we would relate it back to a dysfunction of one or sometimes a combination of these organs. Each of these organs has a little line or a channel or a vessel, or sometimes what is often referred to as a meridian, that comes out to the surface of the body, and that's where most of the acupuncture points are actually located. Now, some folks may have seen charts or other models like what I have here with my little doll. You see these in China a lot, and you'll see there are lines running all up and down the whole body. Everywhere there's a little dot, there is a known point or an acupuncture point which has known physiological functions on the body. So the acupuncture we really divide into two levels of function. One level we say is external. It really relates to the tissue surrounding these channels. So what that means, if somebody comes in with a tennis elbow, a whiplash injury, hip or back pain, joint pain, or a muscle spasm, by activating these channels that run through the area of the damage or the injury or the pain, we're going to achieve several physiological functions. First, there will be a deep level of muscle relaxation. There'll be a reduction of inflammation. There'll be an increase of blood flow into that area. And blood is basically what heals the body. If the blood flow is restricted or cut off because of muscle tension or because of pain causing muscle tension, you can see this is what happens. Reduced blood flow is going to equivalent to reduction or slowing down of the healing process. Part of what acupuncture does is this. Simply relaxes the muscles and moves the blood into the damaged or injured area. Of course, breaking up the pain cycle is also a major part of that function, and that's probably what acupuncturist is most well known for. Now, when we look at the function of the acupuncture internally, we look a little bit differently. Now we're going to look at these same points, but we're going to use them to actually normalize physiological functions. So what are some examples of normal physiological functions or abnormal physiological functions that might be corrected by a stimulus process from the surface of the skin? First one that comes to mind that probably is my favorite, probably because we all experience this to some degree or another, is an excess condition of stomach acid. We would all agree if you have too much stomach acid, you're likely to experience heartburn. If that goes unchecked, that likely can become an ulcer and can become something very bad for your health. The flip side of that, if there's not enough stomach acid, people may not digest their food very well. Our goal here is to use certain points that we know will stimulate or normalize that stomach acid output back to its normal range. You can pick any number of other dysfunctions. Asthma, for instance, is a dysfunction. There are kidney dysfunctions, liver dysfunctions, whatever the case is. There are points that will tend to stimulate the body back to normal. Now, of course, we're going to use more Chinese herbal medicine with the internal disorders and less of that with the external disorders. And there's plenty of overlap in between, and that's part of the comprehensiveness of the Chinese medical model. But fundamentally, the goal is always the same. Stimulate the body to get it back to doing its own healing process. Once the body's back in gear and healing itself, if you can get it to stay there for a while, it'll tend to continue to heal itself all by itself, with the goal being to use food as your medicine, exercise as your medicine, and a good, healthy, happy state of mind. So be sure you tell lots of jokes. Now this next part, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Chinese medical theory of these organs specifically and what they related to and how they interrelate. you may want to get out a pen and pencil and kind of track along the symptoms that you yourself are experiencing and see if you can note where the different areas that you may be most weak in. So to begin our journey into this area, we trace back this theory over 2,500 years. And it's now called the law of 5 elements, as you can see on my chart here. And according to this theory, these organs all had interrelationships. They divided these organs into 5 categories in order to describe the relationship. So I like to think of this as the most ancient form of systems theory. But the 5 categories are as follows: the fire group, earth group, metal group, water group, and wood group. Now let's go over the organs here. In the fire group, we've got the heart, small intestine. Triple heater just means your body's temperature control mechanism. It's not an actual physical organ. Pericardium is just a little sac that surrounds the heart. The earth group is stomach and spleen. The metal group is lung, large intestine. The water group is kidney and urinary bladder. The wood group would be liver and the gallbladder. Now, what they theorized a few thousand years ago is 3 main relationships on this chart. The first relationship is what they refer to as the yin and yang relationship. Now, simply stated, what that means is that what affects one organ of an element will affect the other organ of the same element. As I like to think of, for better or for worse. What does that mean? In our case here, if the kidney, for instance, is damaged or dysfunctional or weakened, the bladder, sooner or later, will also become affected by that and may become weakened and symptomatic. Or vice versa. The bladder can affect the kidney in the same way. But the good news is they also discovered there are points along the bladder channel that will actually stimulate or enhance kidney function and vice versa. So they said that this is like a yin and yang relationship, or what they think of as husband and wife. Why? Because husband and wife help each other out. They share resources. They're yin and yang partners in life. And so it is on our organ system here. The next relationship moves in a clockwise direction and only in a clockwise direction. I like to think of this as an on switch. Sometimes folks might think of it as a diode if you understand electricity, because a diode allows electrical current to only go in one direction. What it means is I can use spleen points basically to stimulate the lung or energize the lung, but I don't use lung points to stimulate the spleen. Now, in ancient times, they didn't have on switches or diodes or anything like that. So again, they looked out into nature and they thought, what does this look like? And they assessed, looking at nature, that every species, the mother always nourishes the child, but it doesn't go backwards. It only goes in one direction. So they referred to this as the mother-child relationship. Again, looking at what they had to deal with, what they had to understand it with, it made sense. So, mother-child relationship is a nourishing or energizing cycle, only goes in one direction. The last relationship on the chart here is really what they call the regulating or the control cycle. It's the little 5-pointed star you see on the inside. And I think of this like a seesaw or an off switch, because in this condition, the kidney's job is to regulate the heart. If the kidney, for instance, is too weak or dysfunctional, it will fail to regulate the heart. Heart will automatically begin to become hyperactive because it is unregulated. If the kidney is hyperactive, it'll overregulate the heart. You'll get the exact opposite. The heart will start to become hypoactive. Either condition in the extreme is not healthy. The ancient Chinese referred to this as the father-child relationship because they viewed the father as a discipline in the family. So children without discipline become rebellious. Children with too much discipline do not grow strong. So again, they drew their analogies from what they could see, and they likened them to the family unit, and applied them to this process here. But basically, we like organs well regulated but not over regulated. We like them stimulated or well nourished and with good internal communication. Now, all acupuncture theory starts here. Many theories have developed over the past 2,500 years to work with the body and work with these meridians and points in hundreds of different ways in each country that it's arrived at over the years. But we're going to look at simply the basics. Now, let's take a look at what symptoms associate with each of the organs. Basically, we start off with the fire group. The fire group really relates to the physical heart itself. Physical heart, the blood pressure, the vascular system, blood circulation, blood flow. They also said the spirit resides in the heart. That meant things like insomnia, anxiety states. More severe conditions could be mental disorders like manic depression, psychosis, bipolar disorder. Stomach and spleen really relate to the whole digestive tract. So everything from the digestion, absorption, distribution of the nutrients, so weight loss, weight gain, things like food allergies, of course, would relate here. The pancreas sits very close here, and primarily pancreas is controlled by these two organs as well, which means diabetes and regulation of the sugar levels also would be treated through these two organs. The immune system is centered in the earth group, or stomach and spleen, so autoimmune disorders like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's and so forth are primarily treated here. Just general immune deficiency problems. Catching too many flus or colds, this may be the first place that an acupuncturist looks to work on. The spleen builds and filters the blood, so blood disorders such as anemia could relate here. And the spleen and stomach also have the property of transporting fluids or transporting dampness throughout and outside of the body. When that becomes dysfunctional, an accumulation of dampness can cause a sense of sluggishness, too much phlegm in the body, lymph conditions, yeast infections, fungal infections are very common with those conditions. Next on the list is the lung, large intestine. Lung, large intestine relate to your outer layer defense. So if you're getting a lot of flus, colds, allergies, asthma, sinus infections, skin disorders, we really look here for those dysfunctions. Kidney and bladder relate a lot to the whole urogenital tract, any dysfunctions of the kidney, the bladder, prostate problems, bladder prolapse, frequency of urination. Now the adrenal glands, which are the stress glands in the body, sit right on top of the kidney, and they control a whole slew of other endocrine and hormonal functions. But in Chinese medicine, this is where we treat for adrenal dysfunction and fatigue as well. The reproductive energy resides here, the level of the sex drive, impotence, infertility issues. And very commonly, the following things are treated: knee pain, low back pain, pain along the whole spinal column or dysfunction of the spinal column, disc problems. All of that would also be treated through the kidney and the bladder. Now the liver and the gallbladder regulate what we call the flow of blood and flow of energy. Flow of blood really relates a lot to the menstrual flow. Cramping, clotting, pain, discomfort, classical PMS kinds of stuff, ovarian cysts, fibroid tumors, fibrocystic breast issues, all are indicative of dysfunction in the liver channel from the Chinese medicine point of view. Of course, the liver detoxifies the blood. Now, it also has a property of what I refer to as nourishing the nervous system, because there are certain nerve conditions that relate here as well. And they are things like a little facial twitch, migraine headaches, case of epilepsy, nervous disorders, stress disorders also tend to be treated through these two organs. Now, as it turns out, there are flavors related to each of these organs. Cravings for the flavors will tend to indicate a little bit of weakness there. So make a note of this. For the water group, kidney and bladder, the primary flavor is salty. So if you're craving salty, we would look here as a concern. Excess craving of sour foods would relate to the wood, liver and gallbladder. Bitter relates to the fire, heart and small intestine. Sweet relates a lot to the stomach and spleen, or the earth group. Spicy really relates to the lung, large intestine, and the middle group. Same thing with different emotional experiences that we have. If we tend to experience a lot of one emotion, there'll be a tendency for more weakness in that organ. So the water group really relates to the emotion of fear. The wood group, liver and gallbladder, really relate to anger or irritability. The fire group relates to joy, or the flip side of that could be anxiety. The earth group, stomach and spleen, really relate to too much worrying or thinking too much. I sometimes wonder if our whole society isn't kind of tied up a little bit over here. And the lung, large intestine really relates to the process of grieving or sadness. Different tissues also tend to relate to the organs, and so those are, for the water group, bones. The wood group relates to tendons and ligaments, and I find that very common in practice. Fire group relates to the blood vessels. The earth group, stomach and spleen, relate to the quality of the muscles, or injury to muscles, or difficulty repairing muscles. And skin problems or hair problems really relate to the lung and large intestine. So that gives us the quick go-around. I hope you had a little chance to write some of the things down that are, bothering you, and kind of tally up which organs may be disturbed for your particular case. If you or someone you care about has a health problem or issue, please call our office at 480-423-3525 for a complimentary 15-minute consultation to see if traditional Chinese medicine or acupuncture can help you. Thank you for watching.